And welcome back to Radio Free Éireann, WPI 99.5 FM in New York. And we're joined on the line by Paul Duffy, whose brother Colin is in prison in the north of Ireland, charged with killing 2 British soldiers. And Paul, thanks very much for being with us.
I'll stay on.
And Paul, just this week, we got the news that your brother Colin was beaten in prison by more than two, by the prison guards. Can you tell us about that, please?
That's correct. On Tuesday, Colin was attending a video link, which is a normal remand here, and it usually happens. Years ago, it used to take place where Colin would have been physically removed from the jail and had to go to the court every month. What they've done now is they don't remove the prisoner from the jail, and what they do is they do it via a video link. So this would be a normal monthly sort of occurrence. And what happened was that after the video link was actually done, Colin was being returned to his cell. And what wasn't a normal sort of routine procedure, what they've done is they decided to bring him into an area where they would began to search him. When Colin was brought into that area, he was actually told that he was going to be strip searched, which meant that he had to remove his clothing. Now, this, as I say, this isn't a normal procedure, given the fact that Colin wasn't in contact with anybody from the outside. It wasn't as if a visitor from the outside was coming in and had contact with him or anything like that. As you well know, strip searches are degrading in themselves, so there was no precedent, for this. Now, I've spoke to Colin about this, and Colin said that he actually sensed that there was something going to happen. He believes it was totally premeditated, that they knew that this was going to take place, given the fact that when he went into the search area, normally you have one, over here people call them screws, or wardens. One of them would usually be sitting on the desk taking notes, while the other would be conducting the search. On this occasion, Colin says when he entered the search area, both prison guards were actually conducting the search against him, which is not usual in the jail. He says he could even see the tension in the screws. He says he knew something was going to happen. Basically, one of them asked him to remove the top half of his clothing, which Colin did so. He was then told to raise his arms. He complied with that. He raised his arms. He was told, once he had raised his arms, he was told once again to raise them even higher again. That in itself, basically Colin believed was they were trying to show who's boss as such. Colin told him that his arms were raised as high as they would go. And as soon as Colin stated that, one of the screws actually grabbed him by the throat, while the other screw persisted and punching him around the head. Colin stated that within seconds even of that, a riot squad came into the search area. Once again, this isn't normal. Usually when an occurrence happens within the jail, it takes a bit of time for a riot squad to get organised. Colin believes that they actually were on standby, that it was going to be a premeditated attack on him, and they were on standby to bring him in. So the riot squad then came in, put him down physically. These guys in the riot squad are actually dressed in, full protective clothing, shields, helmets, everything, that we can imagine. And they physically put him onto the ground. They twisted his arm up his back, and carried him to what would be called the boards over here, which is like a sort of punishment cell. After that, Colin was then returned back to his cell as normal, and he's waiting to see the governor about the whole issue. Colin has lodged a complaint with his solicitor, his legal team, in relation to the incident, and that's where it stands at present.
And how's he doing? Was he badly hurt?
Sorry?
How's he doing? Was he badly hurt? Or?
He's got a lot of tissue bruising around the head and his face. He was telling me it was like, what you would get in a car, if you had whiplash. His neck is very stiff and sore. He's aching all over. His body is aching. There's a lot of issues involved here. The fact that we have spoke about this ongoing sort of persecution of Colin for years on the outside. Now the family's worry is that and we've asked the question even when is this all going to stop in relation to sort of this persecution of him. Obviously, there's no intention of it stopping, even with them and being imprisoned, that they're continuing to try and break him. Yeah. I think people have got to, when they're weighing this up, I think people have got to look back in relation to, 1976, when the British government actually introduced, the whole criminalisation policy. They built the H blocks, and it was called by the British the Breakage Yard. And their intention was to actually break the Republican resolve. We all know what happened, throughout the H blocks, where prisoners refused to be broken and refused to be criminalised. Now, they involved all sorts of degrading treatment within there. I'm not saying, that, this in this prison regime, it's as bad as it was in the H blocks. But what I will say is that certainly their policy of trying to criminalise Republicans and degrade Republicans and break them within jails is consistent with what's going on today.
Well, actually, Paul, I was reading Anthony McIntyre, who did 18 years in Long Kesh, has compared the beating that your brother went through to what happened in Long Kesh. And he said something very important, that the prison authorities always wanted to do this in secret. Their secrecy is their best friend. And the only chance that the prisoner has is publicity, is getting the word out. And that's the only way that you can ever stop this.
Yeah, that's correct, and, it's just sad, on the present day, that we have people administrating, British rule within the 6 counties here, and a lot of those same people have went through, this criminalisation process within jail. They're well aware of what takes place within jail. I myself, was in jail and subject to a lot of that, aggression and policy which was inflicted upon Republican prisoners. But we have an administration here in the 6 counties, who are former comrades who haven't uttered a word about what's been going on here within the Galway. Colin has stressed it also that this issue, even a recent issue in relation to the attack on himself, is nothing new. He has stated that the whole prison issue needs to be addressed, in terms of the policy inflicted upon all Republican prisoners. Only 2 weeks prior to that, another Republican prisoner, Gavin McKenna, was assaulted as well. So they seem to be up in the ante in relation to attacking Republicans here. And you're right when you say that, we need to highlight this issue. And given that, what the family decided to do then was to highlight it as best as we could. So we contacted a lot of the families of prisoners within Maghaberry prison. We got in touch with them. We took the initiative and we organised a protest up at Stormont, where people are sitting, administering this rule in its 6 counties. We travelled up to Stormont. We were prevented from gaining access to the building on 2 occasions. We were stopped by the security of the building, as well as the RUC PSNI. There was a brief standoff at that stage, where Colin's daughter, Katrina, actually made a request to speak to someone from the office of the First and Deputy First Minister, which would be the office of Peter Robinson and Martin McGuinness. in order to raise the family's concerns about not only the attack on Colin, but also the treatment of Republican prisoners in general in Magarbwy. Now, the message we got back was that no one from our office was available to meet with the family.
Now, just for people who don't know, Martin McGuinness is from Sinn Féin. He was, it's been very reliably reported, the head of the Irish Republican Army. So he knows something about this kind of imprisonment, and for him to refuse to meet with the families of prisoners is pretty astounding.
Yeah. I'm not sure whether Martin McGuinness was there himself, but certainly someone, they're getting well paid for it, for starters, so I take it that someone would have been available, at least from his office in particular. Maybe some people don't like, to sort of be confronted about these issues, the fact that this is ongoing. They'd rather just sort of hide and not answer these questions. But what we've got to bear in mind here is that there is former Republicans or former comrades who would call themselves Republicans administering that rule up in Stormont there, and not one of them even showed the courtesy to come down and speak to the family in relation to what's going on. You have the media as well, who are, most of it, as you well know, is probably controlled by the British government. It's a hard thing to do, to try and to expose. But the family are adamant that we'll do whatever is necessary in order to highlight all these injustices. And we're at Stormont there on Friday. We could be somewhere else the following week. Just in addition to that, when the family were and the rest of the protesters were actually returning home after holding the protest at Stormont, they had to travel through a loyalist area. Now, at one stage on the road, there was about 5 carloads of protesters had actually been stopped by the RUC, PSNI, were took out of the cars, women, children. We were searched by them in the middle of a loyalist area and held for a period of a half an hour, and then we were told we could go on. Now, such actions basically demonstrate, that this sort of normal society that people say is happening within the 6 counties isn't that normal. Whereas they're not only persistent in their campaign against Colin and other prisoners within Magarbwy, but they also are persistent in their targeting of the families of those prisoners as well.
Paul, we want to thank you very much. There was another story we wanted to get to. We'll save it for next week.